We've shot this intro 4 times now. We're not going to show you the other ones. Suffice to say, today's going to be a big old group therapy session because 2023 was a little bit traumatic in Eagles land. A lot went wrong, and even more went even more wrong-er. Things started out so promising and then just went to hell. So we're going to go over exactly why everything went to hell, as well as the steps that the Eagles have taken to fix it this offseason. Lots of schematic changes, lots of personnel changes, lots of crazy money being thrown around that I didn't even realize they had, but apparently they do because Howie Roseman doing Howie Roseman things. So, big show today. If you're an Eagles fan, grab a drink. You're going to need it because we're opening some old wounds. Jay, roll the intro. Welcome back once again to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett. That's EJ. If you're new here, this is episode 7-ish of our 32-episode-long team-by-team summer preview, season preview thing, monstrosity, series, whatever the name of this thing is. We go team by team and do a new episode every single day where we spend 60 to 90 minutes talking about every single team. I know the Eagles get a lot of publicity, but, I feel like they've earned an extra hour or so of us recounting everything that went wrong, because clearly people have not heard enough about the Philadelphia Eagles from the national media, so we're going to chime in as well. Before we dive into it, EJ, how are you?
I'm good. Just a disclaimer, we're not going to spend the entire hour talking about things that went wrong or 2023. We're going to spend as little time on that as possible, sort of race through that, talk about some of the reasons, of course, and that'll lead into why they made some of the changes they made through this offseason heading into 2024.
Before we get into it, I want to thank Underdog for helping to make this show possible. Of course, footing the bill for this great Verbo that we got on the water up here in Washington State. We're going to be spending basically half this series here, ripping through 16 out of these 32 episodes. And then, we're kind of doing a home and home. EJ's coming down to LA to finish it off. But if you happen to be a fantasy player yourself, maybe you want to draft right now, or maybe you want to do pick'ems for hockey or baseball or golf or anything else going on this summer, you can find that at Underdog Fantasy in the link in the description below, or at the QR code on the screen. So whether or not you want to draft or play pick'ems or do anything in between, promo code BOOTLEG gets you up to $250 in bonus cash, as well as a pick'em special in the lobby. So if you're going to be watching sports this summer, might as well make it a little bit more interesting on the side. And with that, EJ, speaking of interesting football, and I'm being very generous about that, Philadelphia Eagles, what the fuck?
Got to be careful. The "May we live in interesting times" mantra bit Philly in the ass.
I think Philly doesn't want any more interesting times.
They were like, yeah, make it interesting. And then the world made it interesting. And Philadelphia fans said, no more interesting. Thank you. That's enough. 2023 Eagles overall record 11-6, a little bit misleading. We'll talk about why. Rank in the division second, also somewhat of a disappointment, especially with the way they started. Home record, very solid, 6-2. Road record, 5-4, but it was really the last 5 games, 1-4, the stumble down the stretch where they just couldn't overcome their deficiencies any longer. It caught up with them, and it really felt probably more deflating than it was. An 11-6 football team in the National Football League is not a bad football team, but it sure didn't feel that way limping to the finish.
Because they didn't feel like an 11-6 team. They felt like the 1-4 team. And even when they got the first 10 wins, like I distinctly remember, when we were doing like our weekly recaps, throughout the season, we're like, they won, but it didn't feel right. It's like they barely survived the Patriots. Like Mac Jones was marching them down the field in 2 minutes, and they were like in the red zone. And then I think it was Jalen Carter that came up with a sack, or one of their, might have been Brandon Graham, I don't know, but somebody came up with a sack late in the game that basically like saved the game for them against New England, who were not good.
You didn't even say sealed it. You said saved, and I think that's the tenor for the entire 2023 Philadelphia Eagles team is like saved was was the thing, not sealed or, put our foot down and, put our stamp on that game. It was more like, nope, got out of there with a W. Whew, okay, let's move on to the next one. That was the feeling we had for the first half of the season, and then it really sort of came to fruition in the second half of the season that, again, those flaws stacked up and they couldn't overcome it. We're going to give you 2 metrics, and the Eagles might be the sort of poster child for why we have 2 of these. So the first one is quarterback support. And it's a metric that I came up with Arjun Menon from PFF over the last year. If you're interested in how it's put together, check the link in the description. We did a whole Twitter thread about it, plus an hour-long live stream talking about how that particular soup gets made. It's really a measure of offensive, defensive, and special teams effectiveness, talking about how much support an organization gives a quarterback to succeed or not. 0 to 100 scale, worst team in the league is a 0, best team in the league is 100. The Eagles were a 77.4 on that scale, and that placed them 8th out of 32 teams. So this is not a bad team. You would look at that, say, hey, they had a solid record. What the hell? Why didn't it work out? Brings us to our second metric, power score, that we introduced you to last year. And this one's pretty straightforward. We take 6 important statistics: rushing offense, rushing defense, passing defense, points scored, and points allowed. We just assign them their league rank. Where did they finish within their peers, the 32 teams in the NFL? Rushing offense, 4th. That's great. Passing offense, 9th, top 10. Easily win with that in the NFL. This is where it becomes a bit of a tale of 2 teams. Rush defense, 30th.
Yep.
With that defensive line talent, 30th. And pass defense, there was a lot said about their quarterback or cornerback tandem last year. Pass defense, 28th. So again, 4th and 9th for the offense, 30th and 28th for the defense. That's your story right there, folks. That's why they couldn't hang on down the stretch. Points scored, 7th. Points allowed, predictably, 30th. So you take all those and wrap them together, and this is where the average gets a little bit misleading. The power score is 18. You want the lowest power score possible because you'd like to be number 1 in everything. Of course, that's not possible. Power score of 18 made them 18th overall in the league, right in the middle. And again, they started off strong. They were winning. It was ugly. They ended up on a 1-4 slide to finish off the season. All that kind of averages out and makes them look like a very average team. But the ride throughout the 2023 season was not average. It was high in the beginning and low in the end. And yeah, we draw a dotted line through the middle. But QBS and Power Score do a nice job, I think, of sort of illustrating, yeah, this is what they did overall, but this is how it broke down, and that's why it happened.
I just had a realization of why that Patriots game early in the season was so close. Because remember, at that time, Judon was still healthy and Gonzo was still healthy. So that Patriots defense, which finished, top, I think it was like top 10 in pretty much every single category, and I think top 5 in a couple. That was when they were top 3 in everything, right? It was at the beginning of the year, in the first month of the season, they were like arguably the best or maybe second best defense in football, going up against a very effective Philly offense. The problem is Philly's defense was garbage and the Patriots offense was garbage. So you had 2 one-dimensional teams going at it, which led to a very close and very exciting game. Like, it was a great TV product. Little did we know at the time, it wasn't that, oh man, the Patriots are plucky and they're better than we think. It's, oh God, the Eagles are worse than we think. They barely survived the Patriots. And it's kind of funny how, in September we think one thing and then you get to December and then you realize like, oh no, that actually meant the other thing.
It's that, but worse.
Yeah.
Again, they were able to cover some of those defensive flaws, largely with offense, by outscoring teams. Again, they kept it close because they were scoring a lot, but they were allowing more points than we all thought they, quote unquote, should have. And then once they got figured out, once they got a few injuries, and once really age just kind of caught up with their cornerbacks, the doors blew completely off and they weren't able to outscore people and the defense couldn't stop anybody.
Well, let's talk about the schematics for that defense. They were top 10 in cover 1 last year, which is more man coverage than they had any right to be calling, considering they couldn't actually cover anybody. Right. They couldn't play man with their corners. And their linebackers got cooked a lot too. Like, even when they called, zone coverages, or really zone match coverages. Like their linebackers were getting cooked constantly, so they just couldn't cover anywhere on the field. It's a big reason why there was changes made on the defensive staff, because they kind of beat their head against a brick wall month after month and just never changed, right? Like I think by week 6, when you had Puka like toasting Bradbury for a touchdown on a go ball on 3rd and 10, at that point they should have been like, yeah, we can't do this. We got rookies showing up and absolutely pantsing us on national TV. And they just never stopped calling it. So it's kind of their own fault. You know, bringing in Vic, he doesn't do as much man coverage. It's really more zone match, a lot of quarters, a lot of quarter, half, or half, quarter. A lot of cover 9, which cover 9 in Fangio language is just like match cover 3. Not a whole lot of just pure man coverage, more of a situational call for them. So I think it just we'll kind of get into the draft a lot more, but I think the pick of Quinyon Mitchell, what that told me is like when they go into all of the zone match stuff against 3x1 looks, which is like the predominant look you see in the NFL is 3x1 of varying shapes and sizes. You're always going to have like the one guy backside who's in man. At least in this defense, you're going to have the one guy backside who's in man while they flood everybody else to play like 5 over 3. They took Quinyon to be that guy, and then everybody else is going to get help. So that was the one thing they didn't give people last year was help. And even when they did, the one guy backside who was in man was like James Bradbury, who was getting absolutely torched. So they didn't really have answers either way. But, you know, to kind of distill it down, the Fangio hire is obviously an upgrade, and the Quinyon pickup in particular is what's going to make the Fangio defense work, because even though he is predominantly, you know, calling zone match coverages, there's always going to be one guy on the field who's one-on-one, and they took Quinyon to be that guy. So long way to go for a short drink of water. It's probably going to be better.
Vic's had that everywhere he's gone. He's always had that, if you're thinking about it, in offensive terms, pin and pull, right? And he's always had that pin on the backside. He's had that one guy that can just, all right, that's it. You lock that guy down. We'll work with the rest of whatever they're throwing at us. But in order for this to work, I have to have a high-quality cover guy that I can count on to do that by himself, and then I can work the rest of the scheme. And without that, it doesn't work. And when he's had that, and a very good one, it's worked very, very well. So coming in, he was like, hey, if you need my shit to work, you need to get this guy. Figure out which guy that is. I just need him to work. And the Eagles said, we got your guy.
You remember back in 2018, you know, Kyle Fuller got all the press, but the reason why Kyle Fuller was able to kind of, you know, play off in space and get all those picks and everything like that is because Prince Amukamara was on the backside beating the shit out of people. Mm-hmm. So, like, you need him. You need that guy.
He's always had him.
Offensively, there was another change in coordinator, bringing in Kellen Moore to hopefully fix this offense. And when I say fix this offense, I'm not talking about overhaul this offense. I'm talking about just baseline fix, as in give Jalen Hurts literally any tools to handle blitzes. I don't want to rehash some old things too long because I know Eagles fans have heard a lot about it, but for the people who don't follow Eagles football, this is the ridiculousness of the Eagles offense. So they were 99% in shotgun last year. They were the most shotgun-heavy team in the league, as in they just were never under center unless they were doing, you know, tush pushes, which led to them being number one in inside zone, because when you're in the shotgun, there's only certain kinds of runs you can really call because the path of the back is going to be it's not really advantageous to run outside zone. It's a little bit more difficult to run power. Like if you're pulling the guard that's to the side of the back, it's a little bit harder to run shotgun power just because of the path of the back. Because it's, I don't know, if you're just looking at all shotgun run schemes, it's usually like various versions of inside zone. You know, you got some teams that really like shotgun duo. You got some teams that really like counter out of the gun, but only certain kinds of counter. But again, we're talking half the running concepts out there. You can't really run well from the gun. just because of the path of the back. So when you're in shotgun 99% of the time, you eliminate a lot of different kinds of runs that defenses would otherwise have to prepare for. That's why, if you look at a lot of Shanahan tree West Coast offenses, they're under center a lot. They're in the pistol a lot because you can run anything out of those. The Eagles didn't, so they were very predictable. 43% of their runs were inside zone. Like that's just too much. It's too much of anything, let alone too much inside zone. They also were really bad at handling blitzes. They were the second most blitzed team in the NFL at 39%, which is crazy high. They were 21st in terms of passer rating against 5+ rushers. They were 30th in passer rating against 6+ rushers. There are some teams that are very good at handling blitzes. Like they'll throw hot all day, and they'll take their 4 or 5 yard gains at a time, and they'll just keep punishing you by throwing into open space until you stop doing it. The Bengals are one of those teams. Like Joe Burrow, 5-man protections all day, he's cool with it. Tom Brady back in the day, you want to run empty all day, he's cool with it. The Eagles did not have answers for 5 or even 6+ rushers. They also had the lowest motion percentage at 31%, so they were a very static offense. They didn't use a lot of motion, so defenses felt comfortable blitzing them because they weren't going to get caught in something at the snap. And so when you add all those things together, it leads to a situation where they had the 8th fewest combined dropbacks with 6 or 7-man protections. So they were mostly a 5-man protection team. And even though they had the 8th fewest combined protections of 6 or 7 man, they also had the most dropbacks against 6+ rushers while only having 5 blockers, as in no matter what, defense is +1. So hopefully you guys are following me on this. They led the league by a lot. I'm talking like by 35%. They led the league by a lot in terms of number of instances where they were blocking with 5 and they had 6 or even 7, sometimes 8 guys coming at Jalen Hurts. It didn't happen a lot when they had 7 or 8, but generally it was 6. But they led the league in those situations where we had an unblocked rusher. That is what that stat means. And in those instances, he was 15 of 27 for $150, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 2 sacks, 44 passer rating, lowest in the NFL. So they were in like Colts with Gardner Minshew territory. They were in Giants with Tommy DeVito territory in terms of how they handled rushes of 6+ guys. I know there's a lot of numbers. Hopefully you guys understood all that. But what I'm trying to say is the Kellen Moore addition, and you can say what you want about Kellen Moore, he's not going to give Jalen Hurts no tools to handle pressure. They are going to have actual hots for him to work with. They are going to give him the ability to, use his running backs in protection at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Saquon can do that. Obviously, Saquon's a great receiver, but like they'll use Saquon as a protector.
Sure. Under
Kellen Moore. Like Kellen Moore actually runs a lot of 6-man pass protections. And in general, I just think the offense is also going to have more motion. It's going to feel less reliant on just like 50-50 balls to A.J. Brown. It's going to feel modern.
Oh, like it has a plan?
Yeah, like it makes sense.
So what you're telling me is blitz math bad, Jalen Hurts hurt.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically. That's
Cool.
the best way to distill it down.
That's the too long didn't listen version. And fast forward to 2024, not going to be that way again.
Ideally.
Hopefully.
Possibly.
Mostly.
Maybe.
We'll run with that. Or they'll run
We're
with
trying
that.
to give Eagles fans hope here, okay?
Right.
So, yeah, I guess this whole section, what we're trying to say is talent wasn't the issue as much as coordinators were the issue. Both the coordinators are gone. Both coordinator positions have been upgraded, which hopefully means that the talent that already existed on this roster, let alone the talent that got added this offseason, that talent will be better put to use. And so we're not going to end up with a situation where they're holding on for dear life for 3 months out of the season and then they completely collapse because everybody figured out their coordinators and they never adjusted.
Sounds good to me. I mean, sounds better to me, and probably to Eagles fans listening as well. Talent was never the problem with this team. We've gushed year over year about how his ability to go find it, bring it in, use all the methods available to him. I don't care whether it's the draft, it's trades, it's letting guys go when he needs to before they're going to hit their payday, paying them before their contemporaries get paid so they pay less. Every time we say, man, how he keeps getting away with it. UDFAs always have a good UDFA class. So he really does use every tool at his disposal to restock this roster. It's one of the best rosters in the NFL. And yeah, if you're looking at that, they underperformed last year. They decided the reason was coaching. They changed the coaching. We'll see if it has a better effect. We think it will, right off the crack, but the results on the field will speak to that more loudly than on paper.
We'll get back to the show and talk more Eagles in just a second. But first, one quick word from our sponsor that helped make this show possible, LinkedIn. Hiring is a really stressful process. EJ and I know that well as small business owners ourselves that are looking to hire a short form editor and also short form producer to kind of get ready for this coming season. We're in the middle of that, and we know what goes into expanding a team. And it's really, really difficult to find the right people. But LinkedIn is here to try to make it as easy as possible. There are more than 1 billion professionals on the LinkedIn network, and 86% of the 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn report getting a qualified candidate to apply to their job postings within 24 hours. So if you're hiring, that is the place to be. There's a lot of competition out there to try to hire the best candidates possible for your business. We know that firsthand once again. So if you yourself are also a small business owner and you need to hire some extra help to achieve your 2024 goals, LinkedIn Jobs will help you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster than ever before. So try posting your available job for free at linkedin.com/bootleg and see what they can do for you. Again, that is linkedin.com/bootleg to post your available job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you once again to LinkedIn for sponsoring today's show. With that, let's get back to it. Why don't we talk about the coaching staff in general? Again, we talked about Kellen. We talked about Vic coming over from Miami. Let's dive into the rest of the building because there's some really good assistant talent in here. I would venture to say some legendary assistant talent in that building. And no matter what we think about Nick Sirianni, or I'm not going to speak for you, no matter what I think about Nick Sirianni, the power of the coordinator and assistant level on this team should still be enough to make for a strong staff.
And Nick Sirianni, heading into year 4, I think the most important ability he's shown so far is the ability to change. Right, the ability to adapt, not just run it back, not just say, no, we had it, we'll do better with what we had next year, but saying, nope, that really didn't work. We need to make substantive changes. He's not stuck in his ways, and that's an important, adaptability is a very important quality to have as a head coach. We talked about Howie and his ability to build the roster, coordinators, Kellen and Vic, the special teams coordinator, Michael Clay, notable coaches that you were talking about on offense. Jeff Stoutland is an absolute legend as the offensive line coach. I would say one of the top 2 in the NFL, him and Bill Callahan in terms of developers. Give me a raw piece of offensive line, and I will turn it into a functional piece that plays better than anybody expected it to. When we have those type of offensive linemen in the draft or as undrafted free agents and they end up in Philadelphia or now Tennessee where Bill Callahan is, we go, oh, well, yeah, they have a really good chance to succeed now. Like, I'm betting they will. I'm going to give both of those guys the benefit of the doubt. Stoutland's more than earned it. Kevin Patullo, the associate head coach and pass game coordinator, 4th season with the Eagles, 2nd with the title of associate head coach. So that means they really want to keep him. That's a tag that teams put on position coaches that they can't necessarily make coordinators or elevate, but also want to give more responsibility to so they don't get poached and sort of keep them in the pipeline. They've done that with Kevin Patullo. On defense and special teams, the big hurt, Clint Hurt, senior defensive assistant. Again, one of those nice little special tags for coaches they really want to have. Defensive line is his other half of the title. He's been coaching in the NFL since 2014 with the Bears, the Seahawks, and now the Eagles. Really excited to see what he can do with Philly's stable of pass rushers. He's been very effective at every stop in maximizing pass rushers. When he got to the Seahawks, their sack rate jumped by about a third. I'm expecting, I don't expect a jump in sacks from the Eagles by a third because they're a pretty good pass rushing team, but they have, I think, more tools, more talented players on the defensive line than any stop he's been at so far. So that's exciting for me. And then Jeremiah Washburn, I want to highlight. He is the defensive end and outside linebacker coach, which you might think there's a bunch of overlap there. Philadelphia does as well. They put both those player groups under Jeremiah Washburn. He's got a fascinating career. He actually started on the scouting side. When he entered the league, he was he was a grad assistant in college. And when he made the league, he was a scouting assistant, and then he was an area scout. He was a scout for like 3 or 4 years, and then he made the jump onto the field in coaching, which is not a traditional path.
Usually it goes the other way.
Yeah, not a traditional path through the NFL. So been in the league 22 years now. 3 or 4 years on the scouting side, then transitioned to coaching and has had a bunch of different coaching roles, but has this fascinating overlap with the Eagles because a lot of people do this every year in the draft. We do it in our player rankings. Oh, is he an edge? Is he a defensive end? Is he an outside linebacker? What we used to call a Sam. They just kind of mash together and say defensive ends and outside linebackers, y'all go talk to Jeremiah. He's your coach.
Yeah, if you play out on the edge,
that's right.
Whether your hands in the dirt or you're standing up, that's your guy.
That's your coach. Go over there.
Yeah. All right. So given all that information, we have a segment that we do every single episode called the Underdog Top 3, where we try to break down the top 3 values per team for those of you that are doing all your fantasy football research, which most of you are this time of year. At least most people that subscribe to our channel probably play a lot of fantasy football. I am in an irresponsible number of leagues myself, and I do an irresponsible number of mock drafts every single year. So if you're mock drafting or if you're actually drafting at this point in the summer, which some people, for whatever reason, are drafting in their home leagues this early. But if you're just doing your draft prep in general.
They like extra challenge.
Oh, dude, some people were doing their dynasty drafts like the night that day 3 of the draft ended.
Yeah, no, I got texts from people. They were like, so this is Monday after the draft, right? Completely just out of my mind, sleep deprived, just flew home the night before. Like 3 or 4 texts from people like, hey man, I'm on the clock in my dynasty draft. Like, what should I do between this guy and this guy? And, you know, at that point, it's reflexive, luckily. You've been building that muscle for 4.5 months. You're just like, do this better. Landing spot was good. Good night. Good morning. Whatever.
Whatever time it is. Yeah, no, people are like literally the night of day 3. It's like, so when are you putting out your dynasty rankings? It's like, dude, I haven't even eaten yet. And you guys are drafting? What the fuck are we doing here?
Oh, it's good times. It's like when we announce on Twitter that we've filmed one of these episodes and somebody's like, where is it?
You're like, I don't know, check back in 3 weeks.
There's a couple steps between here and there.
Yeah, by the way, we're recording this on May 23rd, so some of this might not even apply by the time it comes out. We're going to try to make it as evergreen as we possibly can, but you never really know.
Nope.
Hopefully these values also hold for the next 2 to 3 weeks whenever this episode's coming out.
Just a little while.
We're going to use ADPs like as of the time we're recording. So our top 3 values for the Eagles, if you're trying to hunt for value on this team, which is actually pretty hard to do because everybody gets drafted super high because it's the Eagles. Dallas Goedert is going as tight end 12. Saquon's going as RB 5. And Devonta Smith going as wide receiver 22. Like we said, pretty hard to find like traditional values on this team. It's not really like sleepers. Like sleepers don't exist on the Eagles. Like everybody goes high because they put up a lot of points and they get a lot of yards. But that being said, there are mini values like Dallas Goedert being TE12 behind Brock Bowers, who is the TE2 on his own team as of now. Like Bowers is the move tight end in Vegas behind Michael Mayer with either Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell throwing to him. The TE2 in Vegas is going ahead of Dallas Goedert in Philly. That, to me, little rich. Just take Goddard. And then you got Devonta Smith at wide receiver 22 going behind Malik Neighbors, which, again, little rich for my blood considering what we know about Devonta Smith, which is, shocker, he's really good.
And terribly consistent. This is my one of my favorite stats I've found so far in putting these agendas together for the series. Mr. Consistency in 3 years in the league, he's averaged 1,059 yards per year. And he's never been more than 143 yards off that average in any season. In his rookie season, he was 143 yards below that. And in his second year, he was 137 yards above that. So almost exactly the same amount of variance off that midline. He is Mr. Consistent. He is, throw him out there, he's going to get just over 1,000 yards every year.
And that's while being the number 2 option on his own team.
Doesn't matter.
So, and that's why people take Eagles players, is because even their number 2 receiver gets 1,000 yards a year. And when weighing that against some of the receivers that are going ahead of Devonta Smith, like say a rookie with the Giants with not a great quarterback situation and unknown pass protection situations.
Oh, come on, man. DJ threw a really sharp ball to Malik in OTAs today.
Oh, yeah. The air put up a fight on that one. Look, I'm just saying, sometimes it's okay to be boring and play it safe. If you have Devonta Smith at wide receiver 22, just take Devonta Smith at wide receiver 22. In fact, I'd take him before that, but if you're giving him, or if they're giving you him at wide receiver 22, like, just don't complicate things. Just take him. And then Saquon as RB5. Again, this is not really a value, but I do find it interesting that he's at RB5 behind, say, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is going to be sharing quite a bit of a load, or of the load, in the Detroit backfield, and might not even get priority for goal line touches because Monty's still there, and they love Monty as their goal line back. So Jahmyr Gibbs is going as RB4, despite Saquon being behind the best offensive line he's ever been behind, despite being a true 3-down back that I'm not saying he's going to get bell cow work, because very few guys get bell cow work, but like, he's going to be given a heck of a lot of opportunities, right?
He's going to have every chance in this offense.
So RB5, like, again, I'm not saying it's a crazy value, but it's a little baby mini value.
Which is all you're really going to get, as you said, out of the Eagles roster, because they do get a lot of attention from the national media. I know, shocker. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I should have said so. But you do see them on pretty much every show you turn on. So there aren't a lot of sleepers. There aren't a lot of hidden values. And if you're getting those, you're really playing, dynasty long shots. It's not sort of best ball fantasy stuff. It's, oh, well, there's this wide receiver 5 that might be wide receiver 3 in 2 years. And on the Eagles offense, that'll pay off. So in dynasty, that's a value. But in best ball for this year, that guy legitimately might get 7 touches.
I know the argument against Saquon is, well, yeah, but when they get in the goal line, like Jalen Hurts is the goal line back. And that's fair, but if it's not within 2 yards of the end zone, Saquon is getting the carries. So unlike, again, say Jahmyr Gibbs is the example, if they're inside the 10-yard line, like Monty's getting all of it inside the 10-yard line, like you can almost guarantee Gibbs is not going to be given priority. At least there are situations in the red zone where Saquon is still getting the touches. Like, okay, yeah, once they get within 2 yards, they're going to tush push it. But I would rather have a chance of him getting red zone work for 18 of those 20 yards than at best 40% chance of getting it in all of those 20 yards, which is, I think, is what you're going to get from Gibbs. So is Gibbs still like a top 6 running back for me? Yeah, probably. But sure. If we're just trying to get that narrow slice of value amongst elite running backs, again, there's not a whole lot of values on Philly. But if we're just trying to figure out the exact order we think they should go, I don't know. That's my argument for Saquon.
All right. Speaking of Saquon, I'm going to throw you an unscripted one.
Okay.
When's the last time, in your opinion, the Eagles had a running back as talented as Saquon?
Brian Westbrook? Oh, no, actually Shady, of course. So early 2010s Shady, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been 10 years. Maybe
plus.
Maybe slightly more than 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years plus. So it is a different level. We were talking about this morning, that it is a different slice. There are good running backs, and then there are like, yeah, but you can't really get these. There's 5 of these. And Saquon when healthy, is in that category.
God, was Shading Eagle 10 years ago already? Was it that far?
You and I have this discussion regularly. You're like, oh, it's been almost 20 years. And I was like, yeah, it was 2004. Turns out that's exactly 20 years.
I was going through some early 2010s Eagles offensive all 22 when Vic was there. And I can't even remember why I was looking at it. It was probably some random project I was working on. But it was the Vic game against Washington on like a Monday night when he went stupid.
When he went off.
For like 1 billion yards and a bunch of touchdowns.
And just looked completely untouchable and on a different plane.
Yeah, those Eagles teams were fun back then. Like I know that like their 2017 team you could argue was like the best Eagles team in modern history because they won the Super Bowl. But if we're just talking about like fun Eagles teams, man, those Vic years.
Yeah, and I go farther back than that. The Vic years were fun. I go back to Randall Cunningham.
Oh, way back, yeah.
Yeah, when I was coming up as a football fan, like Randall Cunningham was way ahead of his time. Like in Harold Carmichael, and like the Eagles have a great and storied history as a franchise. But like Randall Cunningham was like sort of bolt from the blue. Like guys like Vic had never existed, and Randall Cunningham was Vic before Vic.
Yeah.
Right? He was a guy that was equally dangerous with his arm or his legs on any down and could produce a 70-yard play, sort of at will, and did. And people were just like, wait, what? Quarterbacks can do that? My quarterback can't do that.
Quarterbacks can move at all? Like,
yeah.
What? Yeah, also, just one side note, seeing like prime Deshaun Jackson tape, like all 22, which wasn't really accessible back when, Deshaun was in his prime, but now kind of going back and seeing what like truly great players looked like in their prime on all 22. I don't want to hear anybody ever compare somebody to Deshaun Jackson ever again. Like, even Xavier Worthy, I'm sorry. It's not the same.
He was so scary.
He was ridiculous.
Like he was like,
how are you not in cover 2 every play against him?
He was like cornerback shit your pants scary.
Yeah.
Like as a pro, as an all pro lining up against that guy going, oh, please don't burn me. Oh, please don't burn me. That's what they were all saying, no matter how good they were. And I know all the cornerbacks are going to hop in the comments and be like, no, we weren't. And I'm like, yeah,
no.
Yeah, you were.
We saw the brown stain. We know. Yeah. We know. All right. One quick note. Again, if you are interested in drafting any of these guys at a value as small, infinitesimally small as that value may be, again, you can do that on Underdog Fantasy right now. Link down in the description, QR code on the screen, all that good stuff. That brings us to free agency, and what a productive March it was. A lot of money spent, really a lot of money spent in-house, other than obviously Saquon, and a bunch of names that they waved goodbye to, some franchise legends that they waved goodbye to.
Yeah.
Probably the most eventful March the Eagles have had in, maybe since the 2011 when they came out of the lockout and built the dream team.
Won the offseason.
Right? Oh, boy. I could do a whole mini doc on that dream team.
You should. I would watch it.
But it's probably the most productive, or rather the most eventful March they had since then. So it's been a while.
Yeah, for sure. And we have to talk about the players that left before we talk about the players that took their place. Fletcher Cox, you can't start this whole offseason without saying, wow. Fletcher Cox, his time with the Eagles, incredibly productive. Franchise cornerstone for what seems like forever. Zach Cunningham, not as much so, but did play 61% of the snaps. Again, we're not going to go through every player. We'll put them all on the screen for you to see, but talking about most impactful players, Kevin Byard wasn't with the Eagles a long time, currently now with the Bears, but did play 96% of the snaps at the safety position. He moves on. DeAndre Swift joins him on the Bears. Again, not going to miss him as much.
The one signing we keep forget or keep forgetting that it happened.
Yeah, it kind of happened so quickly and with such priority that I was like, wait, what? Okay, sure. And then people come up to me now and are like, do you like DeAndre Swift on the Bears? I'm like, DeAndre Swift's on the right. Forgot about that.
And you're a Bears fan.
I'm a Bears fan.
When did we do that?
It spun my head because of when it happened, how quickly it happened, and the obvious priority they'd placed on him. But in terms of Philadelphia, because that's what this episode is about, they're not going to miss him because of the addition of Saquon. Hassan Reddick heads to the Jets. He was 75% snap guy for them. Boston Scott. Just have to talk about his giant killing legend. Like that's the relevance of Boston Scott. Hung on that roster for a long time. Didn't play a lot of snaps. He moves on to the Rams. I actually think he's going to be really good in Sean McVay's
but they
offense.
don't play the Giants this year, so
so he's not going to get any touches
Yeah.
or touchdowns. But yeah, a lot of change. Really, Fletcher Cox is the highlight for me in terms of like, take a little, and we like this carpet, so we won't, but pour one out for Fletcher Cox as an Eagle.
legend. At minimum, he's going to be in the Ring of Honor. Very
Yeah.
possible he's in the Hall of Fame. And he's the second Hall of Famer that they lost in one offseason. Because, of course, elephant in the room, Jason Kelsey.
Your T-shirt.
Wearing a Jason Kelsey T-shirt in honor of him.
Yeah,
By the
for
way,
sure.
this is from our clothing partner, Homage. So if
I
you
gotta
want
say-
a Jason Kelsey T-shirt.
Homage has New Heights gear. Jason Kelsey's
that's
podcast.
right. Yeah, they're the clothing partner of New Heights.
And strangely, bootleg gear.
Yes.
So
buy all the things.
if we really want to stretch it, we could say Jason Kelsey is our colleague.
I mean, in the loosest of possible definitions.
Correct.
Yes.
That's the one I'm after.
Vague business partner. Can we even go that far? Probably not. But please don't
Only
sue
if we
us,
can
Jason.
say that Ryan Reynolds is our boss.
Hey, theoretically, technically, yes, he is.
In one of the multiverses, Ryan Reynolds is our boss.
I don't know if we're ever going to get Ryan on an interview on Bootleg, but we should at least try.
Shoot or shot.
But yes, I am wearing a Jason Kelsey T-shirt. You can find that at the link in the description below. Anything you get on Homage doesn't have to be Bootleg, doesn't have to be Eagles, doesn't have to be New Heights. It could be literally anything. If you use our link below, we get a cut of that. But talking about Jason specifically, again, walked away from the game, still on top, still an elite center after all these years, still, one of, if not the linchpin of the offense. The best center I've ever seen in my life. And I know, there's a bunch of other centers that have come and gone in NFL history. You've seen more than I have. But for me, for the millennial football fan generation, Jason Kelsey is the standard that we will judge all centers by for the rest of our lives, at least certainly for me, for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'm ever going to see one like him again.
Now, one of my favorite players in the NFL, just one of my favorite players to watch, to listen to talk about the game. I'll miss him as a player, but he's moving into our realm, and I think he's going to absolutely crush it. Not that he already isn't. New Heights is a tremendous podcast, but he's going to New Heights. He's going a little higher than that, and I think he's going to absolutely rip it. I'm glad that we get to keep hearing his perspective, because if he was one of those that just walked away completely and washed his hands and said, nope, I've done it for my whole life, I'm not doing it anymore, I would miss him desperately. So I am very glad that we're going to get to hear from him on a weekly basis.
Yeah, not just on his podcast, but he's also joined ESPN. He's going to be on Monday Night Countdown. And by the way, Eagles have a Monday night game, week 2. I'd be willing to bet that's probably Jason Kelsey jersey retirement day.
Oh, probably.
It should be, at least. But Jason, I know you're not going to watch this, even though we're borderline colleagues. Toast to you for a great
Cheers.
career. The GOAT of GOATs for me. In terms of who they did keep, /retain, /extend, /restructure, /sign from other teams.
Wait a minute. Slash played for Pittsburgh. You can't do that on an Eagles podcast.
It's Pennsylvania. It's close enough. My wife, by the way, and I know Eagles fans are going to get pissed by this, my wife always confuses Pittsburgh for Philly. We went to Pittsburgh on vacation. She's like, I remember that one time we went to Philly. And I was like, no. Ooh, wrong side of the state. They don't like each other. West versus East. It's two different worlds. And she'll get it one day. He went to
So
Pittsburgh.
what you're telling me is she's a Kenny Pickett fan.
She doesn't even know who Kenny Pickett is.
Yeah, but he went to college there, and now he's played for both of the pro teams.
People always ask me, it's like, oh, is your wife like football too? It's like, no, my wife doesn't give a fuck about football. She doesn't know anything about it. And I'm good with that because that means, like, you know, work doesn't follow me home. Like, I could talk to my wife about other stuff, but, like, the first time she ever heard of Travis Kelce was when Taylor started dating him.
100%.
And I'm okay with that.
Not bad, not wrong. We love you, Nick.
Yeah, no, she's a great wife. Doesn't give a shit about football. It's okay. We all have our faults. Anyway, where were we? Retentions.
We were talking about retentions.
Looking at this entire long list of lots of money given out, your first reaction is probably the same as my first reaction, which is, where the hell did they get all this money? Right? Because A.J. Brown extended $32 million a year. Devonta Smith extended $25 million a year. Josh Sweat restructured. He's at $10 million a year. Mailata, $22 million. Landon Dickerson, $21 million. Fuck it, we'll throw Reed Blankenship in there, almost $4 million, because why not? You know, Saquon, he got $12.5 million. Bryce Huff got $17 million. Mekhi Becton, they brought in to be a backup tackle. Like, you know, Kenny Pickett's their new backup quarterback at $3.5 million, although that was a trade, not a signing. But still, like, a lot of money in there. And so your first instinct is, how? Like, they just signed Jalen Hurts to a crazy expensive deal last year. So how is this even possible? So I dug into the Jalen Hurts contracts because I was like, clearly there's something that I'm missing. And I'd never actually looked into the Jalen Hurts contract structure before. This is the wildest quarterback deal that I've ever seen. There's 7 void years on the back end. Technically, like, yes, the last year of the deal is 2028, but it runs until 2035 because that's where all the void years are. And what that does is it allows them to do this crazy ass structure where he's getting paid in basically only option bonuses. His salary, like, as an average, is $1.2 million. And so pretty much all of his money, like $228 million of that contract, is just in option bonuses. But how it works is they partially vest 2 years before, and then they fully vest 1 year before. And so they basically just kind of pay it in these tiered out option bonuses that kind of stack on top of each other over time. And they become partially guaranteed 2 years before and fully guaranteed 1 year before. So it's not like you could just cut bait and then owe him nothing. Like, you're always going to owe him something. But because they kind of tiered out all these option bonuses over a long period of time and through 7 void years on the back end of the deal, for God knows what reason, it lowers his cap hit a lot. It makes it very manageable. So his cap hit this year is 13.5. His cap hit next year is 21.7 million. His cap in 2026, it's 31.7. Okay, starting to get a little crazy, but like not bad. 2027 is 41.8 million, which again is like up there, but theoretically, like, and again, these teams all project
that's
out.
How many years from now? It's not going to be at that point.
Well, and they always project out the cap of like, what do we think it's going to be in 3 years based on television deals, because they literally hire people to do that.
Sure.
Like, I know some people in the league that do that.
Because we know math good.
We know math good, but some people math real good, and they pay them very well. So it's like 41.8 million in 2027, which shouldn't be crazy by then. And then it tops out at 47.1 in the last year of the real deal.
I feel like this is the Bobby Bonilla school of contract making.
Oh, I haven't got to the ridiculous part.
Okay.
So when all the rest of the void years come slamming home, because when a contract runs out and there's void years on the back, every cent of remaining money slams forward to the front, regardless of the year that it's in, and it's all supposed to be paid, or rather all counts against the cap
right
at one time. And so in 2029, the cap hit is 37.9. In 2030, it's 29. In 2031, it's 19.8. 2032, it's 9.9. That all slams home at once to be a $97.5 million cap hit after the contract runs out in 2029.
Yo.
All that to say, this contract is designed to be extended. It's designed to keep the cap hit manageable so that they can dish out ridiculous money to everybody else to keep that QBS number fairly high.
Yeah.
Right? Better protection, better weapons, better ingredients, better pizza.
Better everything. Yeah, sure.
You know, so Nicole Lynn, who's Jalen Hurts' agent, did a number on this one. It's a crazy contract, but it's also the only contract structure that would let them do all of this.
Gestures at everything. I was just going to say, can the Eagles sponsor this podcast? And then I realized they don't have any money. They spent it all. One you didn't mention, Zach Bond. It was a guy that we really liked.
Well, we have to talk about Zach Bond, EJ.
Not from a money perspective, because as a money perspective, like, he hasn't performed as we hoped he would when he was drafted. But there's opportunity. Certainly, we talked about the inability that Philadelphia's had at the linebacker position really for the last couple of years. And Zach Bond, time's running out for him to show that he can be what we thought he might be when he came out. Certainly never happened with the Saints, but he's got opportunity. He's got a system that I think fits his physical traits. It's up to him to sort of manifest that, but Eagles got a deal on him. $3.5 million. That's not a lot for a guy that's as talented as he
is. For a rotational edge.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. That's fine.
Yep. It'll be fun.
All right, that brings us to the draft, where Howie, once again, had a very nice draft, as he tends to do.
Yep.
I would say Howie's draft style, after years of watching Howie draft, if I was going to describe his style as a GM in any particular way, it's, we have a need, kill it with fire.
Yeah, the shotgun approach.
He does wait for value, but he doesn't waste time in the draft. When they have a need, he attacks it, and he attacks it relentlessly. Like, he doesn't cry over spilt milk. If he misses on a pick, he will replace them, like, as soon as he possibly can, and he will try again, and he will attack until he fixes whatever position group is annoying him at any given time. This year, it was corner, and I thought he did a fantastic job of fixing it.
Yeah, and maybe running back, depending on how you think about Anais Smith. But, there's 3 picks in the top 3 rounds, a bunch more picks, including 3 picks in the 5th alone. Interesting draft just from where they had their sort of concentrated firepower. Can't really not talk about Quinyon Mitchell. We did at the top. Cornerback out of Toledo, really like him. He is key to how they want to run their defensive system. They get him at 22nd overall. I thought that was a tremendous value. I thought he'd be off the board by then, probably 5 to 6 picks earlier than that. I think they were probably jumping up and down when he was available on the board at 22 because he fits their need perfectly. Again, from the shotgun approach, Cooper DeJean, the cornerback, or possibly safety from Iowa in the 2nd at pick 40. They're going to use him differently than Mitchell, but they have use of him and decided they should prioritize him. Crazy athlete, and might give them some value on the kick return team as well because he has those skills. So just an added bit to their 2nd round pick. Jalix Hunt, the edge out of Houston Christian, in the 3rd at the 94th overall pick. This was early for me. This is a guy that has tons of physical skills and is still figuring it out. Just like we talked about on the offensive line side, on the defensive line side, they're like, give me traits. And he's got traits.
It goes back to attack. It's like, hey, man, we got by at edge, but we still need to build up those waves that we used to have in the late 2010s. So what are we going to do? Like, okay, Hassan's getting up there. Let's ship off Hassan. Let's bring in Bryce Huff. We drafted Nolan Smith last year. We're not done. Jalix Hunt, just attack until we have an edge rotation that we're okay with.
I think Philadelphia is just like itchy uncomfortable unless they have 3 deep edge rushers on both sides.
They don't know how to function without it.
Yeah, they're just like, wait, we have less than 6 total. Wait, ring the bell. Will Shipley, the running back out of Clemson, in the 4th round at pick 127. Again, was a little bit early for me. I know a lot of people were much higher on Will Shipley than I was, but couldn't wait. Get a very similar player regardless of the position designation. And Anaya Smith, they list him as a wide receiver out of Texas A&M. You liked him better as a running back. This is their first pick in the 5th round at 152. Then they go and get Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Great draft story. Obviously, his dad played for the franchise. Linebacker out of Clemson at 155, 3 picks later. And then Trevor Keegan, the guard out of Michigan, at 172 overall in the 5th round. I really like that pick. And again, he goes into the Stoutland camp, and I automatically elevate him a couple of rounds and yep, he's going to start forever for them. Johnny Wilson, one of the most interesting players in this draft, the massive wide receiver out of Florida State in the 6th round at 185. I actually thought this was low for Johnny Wilson. I wasn't the biggest Johnny Wilson supporter, but if you're talking about middle to late in the 6th round, thought he had more talent than that.
I'm just really curious if he stays at receiver.
Yeah.
He's a couple Popeyes biscuits away from being a tight end. Not like a lineup as a Y and dig you out in line of scrimmage tight end, but in the sort of a tight end if you squint type guy where he's like 6'6", 250 something. He doesn't have to put on that much weight, and you can make that conversion. I'm really curious to see if they do that, because for his size he moves really, really well. He doesn't move like somebody who is as big as he is. So I think, I'm not saying they will, but I wouldn't be surprised if they tried it.
Yeah, and that was the predominant thought about him early in the draft process. Then he went to the combine, ran really fast, didn't drop anything, and everybody was like, I don't know, maybe he's just a really big wide receiver and we'll work with that. So we'll see. It'll be a fascinating experiment. But again, how he's going to pick up the dollars that other people drop. And in the 6th round, he looked and went, Johnny Wilson's still available? Okay.
Sure.
Mine.
Why not?
And then only 5 picks later at 190 overall, still in the 6th round, a player I really like that we saw up close to the Shrine Bowl, Dylan McMahon, the center from North Carolina State. Undersized, but doesn't lose a lot. Goes back to that, not the size of the dog in the fight, size of the fight and dog. Wins more than you think he should for his size.
Scrappy. It's the best way I'd
Extremely.
describe him. Somebody who you really don't like playing against, because he's going to get under you, he's going to out-leverage you, he's going to turn into tree stump mode. And those are the types of interior defensive or offensive linemen that DTs really hate going against, where it's like, I can't get under him, I can't leverage him, which means I have to run through him, and it's like running through a blocking sled, and that's just annoying. He's just annoying to play against. Right?
He's in the PETA class.
Yes.
PITA, not PETA. We're not hurting any animals during this filming.
Looking at UDFAs, by the way, you mentioned the Jeff Stoutland effect and how he elevates offensive line prospects. Our buddy, Aneem Donkwa, the very, very gifted tackle out of Howard, gigantic human being. We actually have a picture of EJ standing in front of him, and even with the forced perspective of EJ being closer to the lens, he still gets absolutely dwarfed by Aneem. Very smart player. Obviously he's still honing his craft. He's a young player, but just looking at the tools, I'm not really surprised that Jeff Stoutland was like, ooh, gimme, right? I just got Jordan Mailata into a position where he's making $22 million a year. Give me another guy who's really big and really long and really talented, and let me see what I can do with him. It's just a very Eagles-y pickup.
Yep.
Of just take the talent and figure it out. Aneem's very talented, and I think he ended up in the best possible spot.
Was thrilled to see this fit. This, of course, occurs after the draft, directly after the draft, when if you weren't picked, you're in this UDFA scramble, and you're hoping that a lot of the guys that you thought were going to get picked or that you really liked during the process are going to land in the best possible spots. It is an advantage for the player at this point. They get to pick their landing spot. I'm sure he had a couple of offers and went, wait, Jeff Stoutland called? Yeah. Told his agent, I'd like to go there because that's the best thing for my prospects.
I remember when we were talking to him at Shrine, and I literally said, if the Eagles call, you pick up. And he's like, oh, yeah. Oh, no. Trust me. I'm aware.
I'd be very excited about that.
That's the spot.
Very cool to see it happen.
They also took Gabe Hall, an interior defensive lineman out of Baylor that I know you're a huge fan of. I'm not saying I had a big grade on Gabe, but I had him higher than a priority free agent. Like, I thought he could have been a late day 3 pick. McAllen Castles, the tight end out of Tennessee, did not get to him, but I know you highlighted him. Kendall Milton, running back out of Georgia, did get to him. Another guy who I thought very easily could have been drafted late day 3, ended up being a PFA to the Eagles because, of course, it's Georgia.
Well, Howie don't quit.
Howie's going to see that G on the helmet and be like, yeah, sure, fuck it, why not?
Wait a minute, he didn't get picked? No, Howie just doesn't quit. He uses every avenue. We just talked about all of them. We talked about free agency. We talked about the draft, and he doesn't stop with UDFAs. They have their list, and he's going to hit it. They paid a bunch of these guys big bonuses, and it was to get them in camp because they believe, and some of these guys are going to make the team. Maybe not even the ones we highlighted. I love the Gabe Hall pick because, again, get him in that defensive line rotation. He doesn't have to be any kind of guy, right? He can be a practice squad guy this year, and that's fine. They have that depth and wave on the defensive line, but he's got enough talent. He showed enough flashes. Even at the Senior Bowl, he was whooping people. So, how he didn't miss that. And he's like, wait, he didn't get picked? Let's take a chance.
So, with everything we talked about today, that brings us to the summary portion of the episode where, we're going to get to ceiling and floor and wins. But first, we do a distillation of, the question, did this team get better? Or did they get worse? Or are they roughly the same through all of their additions and subtractions? It's interesting because personnel-wise, they're pretty close to being the same, right? There's not that much movement in terms of key personnel. Like, all their money was given to their own guys that are already there.
Sure.
But I'm still giving them thumbs up because the actual problem, at the coordinator level was addressed. So it's same talent, and we love that talent. Slight upgrade, of course, with Saquon being in town. Bringing in Bryce Huff, even though you're losing Hassan. Like, again, all that's like roughly equivalent. So same talent, better coordinators. That, to me, is why I'm doing thumbs up, because all of that talent is going to be weaponized a lot better than it was last year.
Yeah, if you're talking about the first half of last year, I would probably give them a thumbs even. But recency bias as it is, we're talking about the last half, the taste in your mouth, out of last year, I have to say thumbs up compared to that, which is the most recent Eagles effort we've seen on the field. And compared to the last, say, 6 to 8 games of last year, where is this squad? Thumbs up. If you were making me judge from the beginning of last year, I would say thumbs even, and that's not bad because we were predicting them to win the division, and if you're predicting them to win the division again, thumbs even is not any kind of slap in the face.
So for ceiling and floor, you haven't told me yours yet.
I've not.
I'm curious to see how close you are to me. So I put their ceiling at 12, which is only one more than last year, but theoretically they should have won more than 11 last year anyway.
Right.
But I put it at 12 simply because I think a lot of their opponents are pretty tough. They play against the Rams. They play against the AFC North, which they got Baltimore, they got Cincinnati, they got Pittsburgh. They got to deal with. Cleveland's not exactly a cakewalk either. They deal with the Packers and Jordan Love. They obviously have to deal with their own division. An away game in the Superdome, even though the Eagles are more talented, like Superdome ain't easy to play in. So because of their schedule, I feel comfortable putting their ceiling at 12. And that's probably good enough to win the division. Maybe contend for a first seed, unless some other team goes on an absolute tear, which I think the top 3 divisions in the NFC are all close enough that it's going to be tough for anybody to get to 13 wins. So I'll put their ceiling at 12. Floor, I'm going to put it 9. Because in a lot of ways, they got close to their floor last year.
Mm-hmm.
They won 11 games, but I can't imagine them being worse than they were in the last 5, right? So I'm putting their floor at 9, and that's pretty much only going to happen if they have a lot of injuries, short of Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts gets injured, okay, now we got to adjust expectations. But, let's say they start taking on water on the offensive line, on the defensive line, like, yeah, okay, that'll knock them down a peg. I could see them winning 9 games. But if everybody stays healthy, or at least relatively healthy by NFL standards, it's probably an 11 to 12 win team. They're probably in contention for the first seed. They're probably hosting a playoff game. They're probably going on a run and having a real chance at a Super Bowl, which in the end is all Eagles fans really want. Just give them a chance, and for the love of God, stop being embarrassing.
I would say both. My ceiling's 1 game higher. I think this is a 13-win team when you look at the roster and just stabilization on the defensive side. Because the offense was fine, better than fine. The offense was clicking last year. Even though we felt like they could have been better, we knew that was like, they're really good, but they could be elite.
Well, clicking in some ways. Until you blitzed them, then they were not clicking at all.
Indeed. And if you can fix that, neat. But when you're literally lining up Jalen Hurts with Saquon Barkley behind him, Goddard at tight end, A.J. Brown on one side, Devonta Smith on the other side, and we have a bunch more weapons after that. It's not an easy out. So the offense was fine, and the defense dragged it way, way down. Like, the defense held on for the first 6 to 8 games and then collapsed. Like, absolutely fell off the shelf. Vic's going to fix that. The one thing about Vic is his defenses typically take like 4 to 6 weeks to get rolling, to get everybody sort of on the same page and executing the way he wants them to execute, and then they'll lock it down for the rest of the way. So they might stumble a little bit out of the gate, but if they don't, if they hit the ground running, especially with the roster that how he's assembled, I'd say their ceiling, which is, again, their absolute max. Everything goes right. This is a 13-win team. This is a, possibly first seed in the conference type team. You talked about everybody cutting wins off each other. Like, they have that level of ability, and really last year's stumbles has sort of clouded that vision. A little bit of smoke and mirrors about, the Eagles aren't that good. You're like, I don't know, look down the roster, man. Like, they're really good in most areas, and if they play like a finely tuned instrument, 13's a thing. Floor, I'm with you, 9. I can't see him, with as bad as they played last year and still won 11 games, I can't see them winning less than 9 this year. I wanted to put it at 10. Again, everything goes wrong, sort of disaster scenario, and, the defense just punts and doesn't pick up what Vic's putting down. Still probably a 9-win team. It's that talented.
Their 3, or rather, I guess 4 biggest games of the year are obviously the 2 contests against Dallas. If they split that, fine, count that as a win. Dallas is talented in their own right. But they got to beat Green Bay, and they got to beat the Rams. Those are the 2 other teams that are looking at them, saying like, hey, we're going to be in competition for playoff seeding.
For sure.
So got to win those games. Not going to be easy, but they got to do it. All right, that brings us to the end. If you're an Eagles fan, hope you enjoyed this, outsider's perspective on your team. I know you guys follow them on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of you know more about your teams than we ever will, and so you kind of check these episodes just to see how the national media at large is paying attention. I hope we got it right. If you have differing opinions on some stuff, again, of course, feel free to sound off in the comments below. And if you're a Cowboys fan that tuned in for morbid curiosity, don't worry, your turn's coming tomorrow. We have some choice words for the decision makers in Dallas for their lack of decisions made this offseason.
For their lack of all in?
All in my ass. Actually, isn't that what Skip said? I think he literally said all in my ass, but without the comma.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Comma's doing a lot of work
with
there.
Skip now. I understand why he said it. that wasn't even me trying to be funny. That was my natural reaction. I was like, oh, that's why he said that. That's actually the first thing that comes to mind. It's all in my ass. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here before I say something that'll get me demonetized. Come back tomorrow talking about the Cowboys. Thank you once again to Underdog. Thank you to Homage. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to our executive producers on Patreon. If you would like to join our Patreon, that's also linked down in the description below. Helps fund the show and, pay for our bourbon that we drink while we do this.
Sure enough.
I don't got anything else. So with that, tomorrow, Cowboys. See you then.